start.
Year died from smoking.
Hello, can you guys hear me? I assume that you can by looking at my output, so I'm just gonna talk. Yeah, there you go. So, Unity basics. So, I've worked on this scene, but we're gonna make a new one where we're gonna make the racetrack, which is the first homework assignment that we have to do for the CMGT study. Sorry, wow, again. And I'm just gonna walk you through the basics on how to use the interface and how to create the terrain and other stuff. So let's see how it goes. So first I'm gonna make a new project, and it's actually important how you start this. In this case, my template, 3D with extras, high definition rendering pipeline, lightweight rendering pipeline, and VR lightweight. For now, we're just gonna focus on. Let's actually switch this to that one. We're going to focus on 3D with extras. Now the extras include post-processing effects on the camera, so think of a motion blur, depth of field, color grading, other pretty fancy stuff. So I'm going to go for 3D with extras. You don't have to, of course. You can export everything from the extras into the default 3D, but in this case, since I'm a little bit lazy, I'm just going to use that one. I'm going to find my section folder here, and there we go. Let's create a racetrack project. So I'm going to create a project. You can add asset packs from the start. For example, you have these by default. So I'm going to see here, can I add something interesting here? The answer is nope. So I'm done. Create project, and then we'll just let it run. God, is it open in second version? Oh. That's lame. So this takes a while, as you can see. Oh, it's almost done. Oh well. So this only happens when you import it with extras. By the default ones, you don't have this option where you actually import the scripts. For example, with post-processing effects and all kind of fancy stuff. So it takes a little bit longer, but then again, we have patience. So at least I have patience. I assume you have patience as well. The latest version is 2019.1.3, Point 2 should also be released this year as well, if I'm not mistaken, and point 3 as well. Just be careful when you upgrade Unity. Upgrading a project might cause all kinds of weird issues, and it could potentially break your entire project. I've had it happen multiple times, so it's always a bit careful that you don't do it by default. So you have to be a little bit more cautious. So let me grab my game view over here. There we go. So by default, right, I have 2 screens, so my game view is always on the second one. The second one is a little bit easier for me. So this is the default scene that you get when you do the extras one. So the controls are the same as in Maya. So middle mouse button and drag means panning. Alt left click and drag is rotating, and alt right click is zooming. F also works when you have object selected. You can hit F to actually focus on it, and everything else is pretty much the same. So this is the scene view, right? This is the editor view, and then you also have your game view, which always looks through your camera. Now if you don't have a camera, it will show black. So I'm going to turn it off here, and then you get a no cameras rendering. So that just means that there's no actual camera in the scene. To left here, this is your hierarchy. So everything in the scene will be put here, and a scene is a different word for level in Unity. It doesn't matter how you call it though, it's just called scene. So for example, in here we have the camera, we have the light that you can also rotate by using the E like in Maya, Q, W, E, R. The Q for select, W for move, V move, and E for rotate, and the R for rescale apparently. So you can actually move it around, and you can see you get instant lighting, also instant changes. And if you rotate a certain degree, you can actually see that the skybox also changes, because this is a dynamic procedural skybox, so it actually looks at the camera angle to determine, like, is it a sunset in this case, or is it high noon, or is it like the golden hour-ish, that sort of stuff. It's actually really cool. Example assets, just the scene over here and the post-processing volume. So this is the everything in your scene, and then over here you actually have to the right here, this is the inspector, which actually shows all the details of a certain object that you have selected. In this case, it's my camera, right? So we have the component called transform. Every object has a thing called a component, and by default it has the transform component, which means that it has a location in world space with a certain rotation and a certain scale factor. Besides that, in this case, it also has a camera component. You can actually delete it if you want to, like right click on it and remove. And then you can also add a new component here. You can say I want to add a component. I can say the camera, for example, and then there's 2 cameras. I can't right now because it's the same, but yeah, you can actually add more here if you want to. But default, just leave it. If you want, you can change the field of view. Yeah, if I go to my game view here, you can see what happens. I mean, yeah. Just be careful that you don't go overboard with this. Physical camera, so it's actually physically correct. Yeah, for those who want to do it. And then you have an audio listener, so you can actually hear audio when it's playing, and the rest is just, for now, it's not really that interesting. Again, also the light here, for example, it has a component called light. I can actually get rid of it, and I can add it again, so light component here, and it will actually be a light again. So the component system is what actually makes Unity strong. Be of a better word. You can actually add multiple components on it. You can change them, so it's more like a stack of stuff that you can add. You can add light here, but you also have stuff like for the effects, layout, for the UI, for example. You can add physics. I don't know why you would add physics to your light, but you know, if you want to, you can. Also rendering. You can add a flare layer and that sort of stuff, or your own custom scripts or tile map. You can even add a video player on your light. Don't know why you would do that, but if you can do it, right? So the light component here also has like the mode here. You have baked, mixed, and lighting of in real time. Over here, doesn't really matter which one you use in this case, but the intensity, you can like up it completely or get rid of it completely. You can say I want to have soft shadows or hard shadows. It's all kind of fancy stuff, but there's something we'll discuss later on in the future stream where we're actually gonna do lighting. So for now, I'm just gonna get rid of my example assets. I'm just gonna select it and just hit delete, right? And down here at my bottom right, this is my project folder. So this is your folder structure with all your stuff that you have imported. Now it does not mean that anything in here is also in the game, right? So this is just your repository, like GitHub. You can actually put things in here that you might want to use at some point in the future or not. It doesn't really matter. You can also delete it. For example, this readme, I can just hit delete and it's gone. You can import your own assets like your own 3D models and textures and sounds. So that I advise you to use a simple folder structure, be organized, otherwise it's going to be a mess at some point and you start crying and you don't want that, right? So our scene is empty right now. When I hit play here up top, it will actually switch to game view and we'll just see the sky. In this case, absolutely nothing, because we have nothing in the scene. That makes sense. When you go to your game view here, you can also set the game window to maximize on play. So when I hit play, it will actually maximize the viewport. That's why it's called maximize on play. There you go. It might be helpful for like testing the actual game itself, but I'm gonna turn it off for this case anyway. I'm gonna go back to my scene view here. I'm gonna add an actual terrain. So I'm gonna go to object over here, game object up top, 3D object, and then down here you can find terrain. And we're gonna add it, and there we go. When I hit F now, you can see this is our entire terrain. And every square that we see right now, that's a unit, right? So in this case, 1 square. And so all the way in, 1 square is 1 unit, also known as 1 meter. So every square is 1 meter. So when we zoom out, you can see that the terrain is absolutely massive. It's a really big terrain, which is why it's so helpful as well. So 1 square is 1 unit or 1 meter. And in this case, we can also start painting on it. But first, I don't know if you notice it here, but by default it says here auto generate lighting on, which means it's going to bake the lighting and it's going to take up a lot of CPU power. So I'm going to turn it off immediately. I hate it. So I'm going to go to my lighting tab over here and then going to scroll down, and all the way down here you find auto generate. I'm going to turn it off so I stop doing that. It's really annoying. If you don't have this window, you can go to window and then rendering and then lighting settings, which is the same thing. You get to the same window here, but yeah. So the terrain. So in Unity 2019, it actually adds a checkerboard by default, which is actually really sexy. In the old days, no, I saw old, but like half year ago, it would just be gray or white. Now it looks a little bit more sexier. So in the terrain component, we actually have multiple options here, so you can actually add more terrains here. So you can have like, I don't know how many, I don't want to know, but you can actually add more terrains. So if you have a giant open world game or a sandbox, then this might be helpful, but for us in this case we don't do that. So I'm gonna go to my paintbrush over here. That means we can actually paint. Up here you can say, okay, what do you want to paint? In this case, I want to raise or lower the terrain, which means I can actually now sculpt it, right? You can actually, gonna opacity a little bit higher. Zoom in, and then I see nothing because my fog is on. So it has painted something, right? This is my mountain, but I can't see shit. So I'm gonna go down here to my lighting tab and I'm gonna turn off fog, and there we go. You can actually see something. So by default fog, if you use the extra 3D or 3D with extras, it is by default has fog turned on, which is, I mean, it looks sexy, but it's really annoying to paint, right? So in this case, I'm turning it off here, and then we can go back here. And again, we can actually paint here. So for example, I can make it bigger, and then when you hold shift, you can actually lower it again. Now by default though, the terrain is set to 0, 0, 0, which also means that you can't go down, because this is as low as it can go. So what you actually have to do in this case, you have to like raise the entire terrain, otherwise you can't do it. If I can find it again, it's somewhere in here, but I'll just do it next time. But you can like raise the entire terrain. Oh, actually it was this one, set height, no, doesn't matter. So you can't go down, right? For like basic terrain like mountains, this is perfect. If you want to go for like complex stuff like cave systems, that sort of stuff, you don't want to use this system anyway. So I'm gonna lower down the opacity a little bit, and I'm gonna go to my like ridges over here. I'm gonna make my brush a lot bigger. Oh, that's too big. And then we're gonna paint here. I just want to add like mountains in the back, so we can actually, there's like this border that we can't cross. But we're gonna make it too steep for the actual player to actually walk on it. So I'm just gonna paint here a little bit. Absolutely amazing. You can also choose a different texture that paint with. I'm gonna go like a little bit more rough. And oh, this is a cool trick. If you hold your right mouse button, and then you use WASD, and then you can actually zoom in. And if you hold shift, you actually go faster. So this is a really cool way to float around the scene a bit faster than usual. I'm gonna add more, like a big ass mountain over here. Let's just call it Mount Doom. Bigger, bigger, bigger. up the opacity a little bit. So the opacity is the same thing as brush, like how hard you paint, right? Or what the opacity is on your brush. There you go. Maybe a little lower here. Beautiful. So for example, right, maybe you want to have like a capped surface. For example, you want to have like flat mountains. If you can go to your set height here, I'm gonna paint a little bit of a brush here. I'm just gonna add a little bit of a terrain here. If you go to your set height, you can actually hold Shift or left click to set height, and then you can just paint on it. Oh, I'm doing it again. Sorry. Set height, and then Shift select the height that you want to use as a default height. In this case, I'm gonna click like here somewhere. Then you can paint, and you can see it actually creates like this nice capped surface, which is really nice. And then you can actually continue on with this. So for example, maybe let's make a racetrack border here. I'm gonna paint a little bit higher. Just gonna keep painting a little bit less brush size. So, and the brush now, it can go higher than the height that I have selected. So let's imagine that let's make this our racetrack. Actually, that's kind of cool. So weird racetrack, which you can fall off, which is always good. So this is going to be our racetrack. Maybe let's do a secondary road that you can pick, and maybe one here as well. Okay, something like this. Beautiful racetrack, and then in the middle maybe we just want to add like a little bit like mountains or something at least, because right now it's really boring. So I'm gonna make my brush a little bigger. I'm gonna grab not that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Cool. Lower the opacity again, and then I'm just gonna raise the terrain a little bit so it's not as flat. So that's boring. Same here, maybe a little bit. Beautiful, and we're done. Cool. So let's have a closer look. So this is going to be our racetrack from like this angle. So this is the size it's going to be. So roughly, so this looks pretty okay. Maybe a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe a little bit more here on the edge. Whoop. Well, actually, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. So let's leave it like this. You can also stamp it if you want to, but in this case, I'm not going to do that. So I want to actually start texturing this. So when you're done with your sculpting of your amazing looking terrain, you can go to paint texture, and then you need to edit and add layers. At first, I'm going to create my base layer over here, and it's going to ask for a texture. Let's see, do I have a base texture here? I do not. I'm going to grab some textures that I have. Do I have some textures over here? Probably. I do. Okay, so let's grab this texture. So you can actually do it multiple ways. In this case, I'm gonna go to my assets here. I'm gonna make a new folder. I'm gonna call it textures, since I like to be organized. In this case, I'm just gonna drag in my textures over here. So I'm gonna grab my albedo here. I'm just gonna drag it in here into Unity from my Explorer window. I'm just gonna drag it in. That's it. So I want to use this layer, this texture as my base layer here. So I'm going to go back to my textures here. Again, I'm going to create a layer. It's going to ask for my texture. I'm going to use these form tiles over here. And done. So the first texture that you'll add will be filled, will fill the entire terrain by default, like this. And if you want, you can change all the settings here still. But for now, this is going to be like the base layer, right? So again, the first texture that you add, it will create, it will fill the entire terrain with that texture, which is not bad. It's quite nice. And then you can actually start changing things a little bit. So in this case, when you click on terrain layers over here, and a new layer here, I can still change the metallic and smoothness here, so I can make it a little bit more shiny, for example. Now I have those textures as well, so I'm going to drag it in here. So I've got my metallic smoothness here. I'm just going to drag it in. So let's grab this again. So I'm going to bring my mask map, just throw it in there. Oh, it doesn't do anything at all. Well, it's fine. And of course, we also have a normal map, so I'm going to do the same thing here. Just drag it in, and there we go. And off. Okay, I'm just gonna convert this into a normal map. There we go. So you can adjust everything you want. You can adjust the texturing and the size of here. You can actually adjust the tiling, make it less obvious, a little bit more obvious. In this case, I'm gonna go for like, I don't know, 1 and 1. And you can see why it tiles really bad. So let's make it even less ridiculous, like 0.5, 0.5. And then of course we need to add more textures in this, right? So I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna add a layer. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna create a new layer. I'm gonna find a new one here. Do I have something like a texture here? Let's see if I have something else. I'm just gonna go hit Google real fast for a grass texture. I don't care which one it is. That one. Seamless. That's always good. Okay. I'm just gonna throw it on my desktop, so I can see it. So, oh, and don't mind the Game of Thrones episodes, because I bought them all, of course, legally from a subscriber somewhere. Is it this one? I think it's this one. I'm gonna assume it's download. I think it is. Yeah, there you go. So, again, we can add here, so we can actually append here. So I'm gonna maybe add a layer or create a layer. I'm gonna add create a layer here and gonna grab my texture. Now when selected, right, you can actually start texturing with this layer. So if I start painting now, you can see that we can actually start texturing the grass. You can also of course use a different brush if you want to. In this case I'm gonna pick one, and then I'm gonna pick my like a cool brush if there is one. This one's pretty cool. And same thing here, right? So I want to make my road like grassy real fast. And of course you can still change the texture tiling in a little bit if you want to. Just gotta make it look pretty. A little bit more. Come on. So from a distance it looks pretty okay, right? But I'm quite convinced that if you zoom in, it's gonna look hideous because of the tiling again. But we'll see. So this is a really big part here. Gonna change my brush. Oof, too much. Oof, too big. Ooh, too much. It's like finding the sweet spot in brush size. Can be a little bit annoying. And there you go. So I'm not gonna do like multiple layers here, but I can imagine that you want to add like a third layer with maybe like rock, for example, or more different color of grass as well. You can go nuts pretty much. It supports like a shit ton of actual layers. So you will never run out of like texture detail. So I'm gonna change that maybe like 1 1. No. 4 4. Oh, 4 4. Doesn't tile at all, to be honest. But same here. Make that one a little bigger as well. That's better. Doesn't tile at all, but you know, just imagine that this tiles really well, and then you get the idea. Of course, don't forget to save once in a while. I'm gonna hit save. By default, it saves as a sample scene. Since we use the 3D with extras, it's gonna create the sample scene. Anyway, so I'm gonna grab my light here. I'm gonna adjust it a little bit. Of course, you can also work without lighting. You can actually go here and on the light bulb, then just click on it, and then turn this off and on. In this case, I want to use it though. But okay. So, what else can we do with this? With the terrain, we can add trees if you have them. You can also add flowers if you have them. In this case, we don't. So I'm gonna go to the asset store here. Asset store or window, and I think it was over there, asset store. And I'm going to download the standard assets. If it would load, and actually lost load. So the standard assets used to come with Unity by default. That's why they're called standard assets. Not anymore though. So you have to download them yourself. In this case, I'm going to go to the Unity Technology Standard Assets. It's free, it's always good. And then just going to click on download. You have to log in though, otherwise it doesn't work. But it's not an issue. And in here there are, oh, you see here, first person controller, third person car controller, particle, example scene, rollerball, etc. It's actually really nice. to get started, right, with like a prototype. This is actually not bad. Of course, you can also have a look around at the actual it's a store. They have a lot of free stuff here as well. It's nice, and if you want to see some hate, also look at comments. It's hilarious once in a while. Let's download it. It's actually huge, bigger than it used to be, but almost done. 82%. Okay, and then it's done, right? But you still need to import it into your actual project, otherwise it doesn't work. I'm gonna click import, and it's gonna decompress the package, which sounds really bad, but it actually is pretty good. And then I'm gonna hit import. I don't care. I'm just gonna import everything. Then we'll have a look what's actually in there. It's writing it, and it's gonna appear here in our asset list or an assets folder. Almost done. And almost done. So did you guys vote for the EU, or are you going to vote for the EU? Assuming that you're of legal age, of course, and you can vote. I was also thinking about buying a webcam, so you guys can actually see my face. Well, in this case, you don't want to see it because it's hot as fucking in my office. But I think it would be fun so you can actually see what I'm doing here. It's almost done importing. The standard assets for those who just joined. There you go. You got an error. Yeah. In this case, you can go to console and just immediately clear. You don't care. Just ignore it. This is the only time I'll actually say ignore errors. In this case, you can. So I'm gonna go back to my scene here. And in the standard assets here, we have like a 2D folder here. I'm just gonna open it. You have 2D assets that you can use. You have cameras, you have characters, like a first-person controller, and a third-person controller that you can use. You have environmental stuff like speed trees, water basics, fonts, particle systems. They're really cool. Prototyping stuff, utility, and vehicles, which is even more awesome, which we're gonna use as well. I know, everybody wants to see my face non-stop. So, I'm going to go to the environment over here, and then I'm going to find water. And it says do not work in VR. We're not going to do that anyway. So, there's water and water 4. There's actually a difference. I'm going to show you both. So, I'm going to go to my water here. And first, I'm going to click on prefabs. Always, for love of God, use prefabs. So, I'm just going to drag in. I'm going to go for the water pro. Daytime, just going to drag it in, and it spawns over here. So, I need to move it. Again with just W, and then I'm gonna find where do I want to put it. I want to put it in the middle. I'm gonna make it bigger, way bigger. I'm gonna make it higher as well, so I can actually see it, and I can see the water rising, literally the water rising. Okay, that looks pretty good. There's like a nice island here in the middle, maybe a little bit less. There you go. Maybe I want to raise the terrain here a little bit, so it doesn't like peek through it. I'm gonna do it here. There you go. It also helps a little bit with the breaking off of the actual the racetrack. There you go. That's cool. That's cool. So now I have water in our scene, which is awesome. The water is actually quite good. Actually, have some pretty decent features. Like you can see if I zoom in a little bit. It actually has like a bump layer on it as well, so it actually behaves like water. It's pretty cool. And the water 4, I'm going to show that on as well. Again, prefabs. I'm going to go for water 4 advanced, because we are advanced as fuck in here. I'm going to move it. And this is more like an ocean shader. So if I now hit play here, you can actually see it behave properly. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to go back to my scene here. See, this is how it actually looks like what it looks like. So yeah, so you get like wave stuff that you can do. You can also change it as well. You can change anything. Oh, new Batman trailer. So you can like intensity of the Fresnel effect and edge fading. You can pretty much change anything you want. Even foam, you can up the intensity of the foam or no foam. It's really cool. So, and the other one, the water is just water, to be honest. Just gonna zoom in. It's also behaving properly, so it's also like waving. See, it looks really cool. So I'm gonna exit again. You can see the water 4 also adds a second object here, which you can ignore. I'm gonna delete this entirely actually. I'm gonna go back here, and again I'm gonna go to my terrain here, and then I want to add trees. There are some in there by default. Again, in the speed tree folder here, you can find a broadleaf, a conifer, I don't know how to pronounce it, and a palm tree. So I'm gonna go to my terrain here. I'm gonna go to my trees, this one over here. I'm gonna add edit trees. I'm gonna add a tree, and it's gonna add for a prefab. So in this case, I'm gonna click on this small circle over here, and then I'm gonna find my broadleaf. Let's go for desktop because we're having a desktop here, and click it and add. So now you can paint trees, literally paint trees. I'm gonna make my brush a little bigger. Now this sounds awesome and also dangerous. People go completely overboard with this and add like a million trees, and then the game doesn't run anymore. In this case, right, if I zoom in, this is now an actual forest. It looks awesome, but it also needs to run properly, right? So I'm just gonna go nuts here. I'm gonna add more trees here, and I'll show you what happens. There we go. Trees. Everybody likes trees. Maybe I'll come here in the middle as well. Otherwise, a lonely island. Trees. Oof. A lot of trees. Cool. So, how can we test how much frames we actually have? So I'm gonna go to my, let's go to my characters here. First person controller, prefabs, and then FPS controller here. Don't use the rigid body one, but the first person controller. I'm gonna just drag it in the scene. I'm gonna find it where it is. Like over here, I'm gonna place it up top here. I'm gonna zoom in a lot and make sure it's actually above the ground, like this. I'm gonna delete my main camera, otherwise we have two cameras, it doesn't work like that. So I'm gonna delete it. Actually, I'm gonna just turn it off. A bit better. Then I'm gonna hit play. And poof. You can now actually walk around the scene. And you hold shift, you can sprint. And you can jump. Right, the first thing you'll notice though is that the shadows actually appear at a certain distance. This is done by default, otherwise it will be rather painful. But it looks weird, right? You can see that the shadows don't appear at all in distance unless you come closer. And all of a sudden they are, poof, they're there. This is actually done for a reason, right? So you actually get a decent amount of FPS. If you go to your game view over here, and you could turn on stats and VSync, I just do both all the time, and stats mostly, because then you can see how much FPS you get over here. So let's hit play. I'm curious, I don't want to know probably. I get 44, right? Now you have to keep in mind that this is not the actual number, right? Because there is a lot of overhead from the editor, a lot. So if you have like 40 in the editor itself, it's pretty okay. Jump down, and fall through the water at all. Water's gone. So if you want to have fog in there, you actually have to program it yourself. Total darkness. Don't know what I'm doing though. I'm lost in my own level. There we go. Beautiful. So 30 FPS. So the trees are way too much, right? You can imagine that you don't want to do this. I'm gonna lower down. I'm gonna go back to my tree painter thingy over here. And when you hold shift, you can actually delete trees. Like ones over here, we don't need them in the back, right? So I'm gonna delete, hold shift, and just gonna delete a whole bunch of them. The more, the better, in my opinion, because that will save FPS. And FPS is everything. Oof, what's that? Oh, that is weird. For those who want to know what it is, those are called LODs. You don't have to know what it is right now. But it's a level of detail. It's a way to optimize games. So gonna get rid of a lot of them. There we go. Because we want to add more, right? Only 3 is a little bit boring, so I want to go even further. I want to see how if I can actually get down to like 5 FPS. Shouldn't be too difficult, so that's fine. So trees are one thing, right? You can actually add more trees if you want to. You can add the conifer as well, or the palm trees. But I want to add grass, and I want to add a shit ton of grass. I'm gonna go to my paint details over here. I'm going back to my environment here, and we should also have like grass. This one over here. So my terrain, paint details. Gonna add. How does this work? Edit details. Add grass texture. Again, detail texture here. Click on this circle, and I want to find my grass. Grass. I'm gonna this one. There you go. Just click add. There you go. Now we can paint grass. I'm gonna click it. Nothing happens until we get closer. Right? And by default, like grass is just 2D. It's just 2D objects. So you can add a lot more. You can also increase the opacity. I really don't think you should do it too hard though, but I'll just do it for now. And you can paint grass everywhere you want. I'm gonna grab a big ass brush. Just gonna go ridiculously much. There you go. Again though, it doesn't draw the actual grass till you get to a certain distance of the grass. Again, done for optimization issues. And now again, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, and it all pops up, and then we're gonna hit play again and see how many FPS we actually have. Oh god, I'm scared. Oh, actually not that much. But the grass actually moves in the wind. Looks pretty cool. Oh, actually pretty decent FPS rate. Beautiful, right? Of course we can add more, multiple grass. I'm gonna add details, add grass texture. I'm gonna grab the other grass front, and I'm gonna, is this one or this one? I think it's this one. Nope, wrong one. Or are this actually this? If I just painted the same one, I think I did the same thing. I'm gonna add it again, add grass texture. Grass front 2. There you go. And again, just paint it, then you get a different texture here, just to make it a little bit more varied. Again, just gonna paint it. Just wanna go nuts here. And beautiful. Again, let's hit play. Absolutely amazing grass. And jump, and jump, and jump. Okay, so right now, right, the textures appear from a certain distance. I kind of want to change that. So I want to go to my edit here, and then I'm going to go to my settings, project settings. There you go. This is new for those who are used to like 2018. This is new. So there are some settings that you can use. In this case, graphics. I'm going to go to my quality over here. And I'm going to set like ultra, and then you can change the shadow distance. Yeah, I'm going to like bump it up to 200. Probably going to kill my computer here, but let's see what this does. Now you should see a little further distance. Oh, still decent frame rate. Now you can see that the texture actually draw from way further. And now if you turn back on auto generate lighting, everything should look a little bit more prettier as well. So I'm gonna let it bake here in the background. Everything should look a little bit prettier. Just be careful with adding trees, because it can like break everything, like your laptop, and it's hilarious for us to see, but in your case you probably don't want it. So I'm gonna let it bake. So this will also like fill the black areas in the actual game itself, because by default, right, shadows are black. You can see right now the default shadows are black because there's no ambient lighting, and if you start baking everything, it will actually do that. So that will make everything look a little bit more prettier than black shadows. Let's wait for it to finish. Seconds. 12 seconds. Oh, reflection probes. There you go. So now I hit play. You see that these shadows are now filled with like bluish haze from the actual sky. The trees look a lot better as well. See, this looks a lot more natural by default. So let's add the actual car. So I'm gonna delete my first person controller because we don't need it anymore. And then I want to go to my vehicles in my standard assets. I want to go to vehicles and then car. Again, prefabs. And then let's do the car, right? Just the car. Drag it in, find it in your scene. I'm just gonna F it. Gonna drag it somewhere where I can actually see it. Again, make sure that it's actually above the terrain. Whoop, wrong button. And there we go. Make sure it's actually above, so I'm going a little bit higher here. And then I'm going to hit play, right? And you see what happens. Absolutely nothing, right? Because there's no camera. So by default, there's no camera in the car itself. You open it up, you can always see collider, wheel hubs, lights, particles, etc. But no camera. So I'm going to turn back on my main camera over here. And I'm just going to drag it in my car, right? Just drag it in here. Oh yeah, that happens as well. Okay, I'm gonna go here. This is new. It's really annoying. Actually, I find it really annoying. Oh, prefab. So this is the new system in Unity, the prefab system, which is in theory really nice, but also really annoying. I got an error, right, that says that you can't do it unless you open the prefab. I don't want to do that. So what I can do here right now is I'm gonna select my car prefab, right click and just hit unpack prefab. Now I can move it in here, no biggie at all. So I need first to move the cameras like somewhere actually where it actually looks on the car. I don't know where it is. There it is. Jesus Christ. Over here. Bit tedious. There we go. Okay, I'm just gonna place it here to show you what happens. Okay, the car is here. I'm just gonna hit play now, right? So I'm gonna hit play. We should now see something, and we can now, when I move forward, the car moves, but so does the camera. By default though, because we are using the 3D extra here, we now have a simple camera control on my camera. I'm gonna delete it, and I'm gonna hit play again, and it should work. But you can imagine, right? It's motion blur. I can't see shit, right? So we actually need to rotate the camera a little bit. So you can see, right, that my gizmo here, the movie gizmo, is on its local axis. So up here you can change the pivot, and local, I'm going to click on local, it will turn into global. And if you go to pivot here, you can also change the center. In this case though, it doesn't really matter, so I'm going to grab it, I'm going to rotate it. Now you can also see up here, right, the actual value changing. So you go from 90 to this case. You can also like input here for like, I want to do 0. Then I'm going to align it with my car again. There you go, maybe a little bit more to the center. Maybe a little bit lower so you can actually see what we're doing. And up. I kind of want to see what we're doing right with the car itself, so maybe a little bit lower here. That's kind of cool. And there we go. Now when I hit play, we can actually drive the car around. Oof, oh god, I'm gonna crash it. We've crashed. Too high. Yeah, no, doesn't really matter. So I can't really see it that much, so I'm gonna make a little bit more adjustments here on the camera. I can see a little bit better here, maybe a little bit further back. I can see a little bit further. Would be nice. And also again, the drawing distance of the grass, right? You can see that it only appears when you get in a certain area. So let's see if we can change that as well. It should be in my terrain, right? So detail distance. If you set it to like 6, it only appears when you're right in front of it. If you go like all the way up to maximum amount, you can always see the grass, 250. Just be careful. I don't know what's gonna happen though. I'm gonna hit play and we'll see. Still decent amount of FPS, 60 FPS. But the grass is also kind of blocking my view right on the actual road, so I kind of probably want to delete it. Oh, fuck. I suck at my own game. Oh, Jesus Christ. If you get an error there, just ignore it. That's what I do as well. Okay. Pretty cool. I'm gonna get rid of some of my grass here, so I'm gonna go back here to my terrain here, paint details. Again, if you hold shift, you actually get rid of it. In theory, or not. Why doesn't this work? Oh, this doesn't work anymore. Oh, does this work? Oh, you have to do it by layer. Okay. So you have to click on the actual layer here, then you can delete the grass. So I'm gonna do that here real fast and furious. Same for this one. Oops, is it actually this one? Yeah. So some grass is cool, but you don't want to overdo it, right? And I overdid it. Okay. Should be a little bit more clear now, so if I play again, we're gonna drive around, that's better. It even has like built-in sound effects. So you can see it actually has motion blur. I'm gonna turn it off in a little bit. I really don't like motion blur in games. Ooh, annoying physics. And I'm dead. Fuck it. Okay. So you can see right there that the camera has a lot of motion blur. Like you said, I hate it. So but this is though only with the 3D extras. So I'm gonna go to my camera here, and then you can see there's a post-processing layer. If I click on it, oh, they changed it again. This one, my volume here. I'm gonna go to my motion blur here. I'm just gonna remove it completely. Thank you very much. Don't want depth of field either. Oof. Some cool effects that you can add. There you go. Okay, so what else do we have in the assets folder? We have particle systems. They're also awesome as well. So again, make sure you go to prefabs. And then you have afterburn, dust storm, explosion, fireworks, and all shebangs. I'm gonna go for dust storm, proper one. This one. I'm just gonna drag in the scene here. Just drag it in. Find it again. There you are. I'm gonna move it. There you go. So this is a particle system. We're gonna talk about this way more in the future, but for now I just wanna show you how to add it real quick so you can make your game look epic. So maybe a little bit higher. There you go. So to the right here in our inspector, this particle system, or the particle system, it's system, and I want to go to my shape here that says box. I'm gonna make it way bigger here. I'm gonna make it like let's do 500. Fuck it, 500. Nah, let's do 20 on high and 500. So I want to make it huge, right, like this. Is it too huge? That's too huge. Okay. So to actually get a decent alignment, you can actually click here on the middle button in the perspective. That will turn it into an isometric view or 2D, and then you go to Y here. You actually can align it properly. It's a cool trick. You can't scale this, but you can scale this, but you don't want to. So I'm gonna make it a little bigger here, 600 and 600. My entire track here is in particle system. There you go. different view. Should be this flying. Okay. Click here again to actually go back into. Okay, play again. To actually play it, I'm gonna go to my emission here. I want to add like 1,000 particles. I can add more, right? I can add like 50, like 10,000. But there's a cap right here, right? Max particles. There's a cap, so I'm gonna add a 0 here, and there we go. Maybe I also want to make the particles a little bit bigger, a little bit live a little bit longer here. Let's do 25, 45. There we go. So again, we're going to talk about particles in the future, but I just want to show you how to add it. Then we're going to play, and we get a giant dust storm. Still pretty decent FPS, to be honest. I didn't expect that. Just turn it off real fast. Ooh, good. So the controls are awful, but you know, you get an idea. I don't know where I'm going. Oh, don't go there. Fuck it. There you go. This is really bad level design. Anyway. So. It's pretty cool. Maybe we can add more. You can add smoke here and steam. Maybe a steam on the water here if you want to. What else can we do? We have some effects here. It's not really necessary. Environmental, we just had it, right? The water. Basic. Particle system characters. You could also have, okay, I'll do that one real fast as well. I'm going to turn off my car here. I'm going to go to my third person, again prefabs, going to drag in my third person. This guy is called Ethan. Ethan is a fucking legend. Oh, come on Ethan, there you go. Ethan is flying in the air. Much better. So, again, there's no camera in here, so I'm gonna add one as well. So I'm gonna click on Ethan, right click camera, so it actually adds a camera on Ethan. I'm gonna raise it a little bit, and then I'm gonna pull it back and find the angle. And if I'm not mistaken, when I hit play, it should maybe work. And we have Ethan running. It's a little bit weird, but it works okay. So now you have Ethan jumping and running. So this is real easy how to add something. I'm gonna delete this again, and then I'm gonna turn it back on my car, and then I'm gonna go here. Okay. So maybe you've created like an awesome asset at some point, right? Maybe during like a study, for example. I don't know, could be a thing. So I'm gonna go here and find some of my assets here. I'm gonna go to let's go here. Okay. So I made a couple of assets before, and again I'm gonna make a folder here. I'm gonna call this my stuff. Let's call this a cabin, because it's cabin. I'm gonna import everything though, so my entire folder. I'm just gonna show it real fast. So everything in here, just gonna drag it in. Oh, there you go. Let it import. Shouldn't take too long. There you go. So I'm gonna find everything here. I'm gonna place it. I'm gonna find my cabin outer, cabin inner, cabin door. This is my cabin. Beautiful cabin. So if you want to be a little bit more organized, right? You can actually, what you can do, you can create a empty game object. Create empty. You can put all these as a child of my game object over here, and then you can move this one. So it's like grouping with empty game objects. It's really common. it's just a little bit more organized, or a bit more German. Because in the end, everybody wants to be German. A little bit higher. There we go. Rotate a little bit. If you hold control, you can actually snap how far you can actually rotate. So now this maybe. There you go. So let's go to materials. By default, when you export from FBX and you turn on embedded media, it's going to also export your materials. I'm going to click here, outer here, for example. One thing is important though, that you make sure that the albedo here is white. Otherwise, you get a wrong texture color, which is annoying. So I'm gonna find this looks like outer, I think. Yep, there you go. Metallic and no map. There we go. The inner is not that important. I'm gonna add it though. So same thing here. Make sure the albedo is white. And there you go. This is normal map. This is normal map. Cool. I'm gonna save it real fast. So this is how I import it. I drag in a scene, but there's a but. Find my house. It's my house, right? I can drive right through it because the house by default does not have colliders. So we need to actually add it manually. Now, of course, you can do it on import, but that's really expensive, so I'm not doing that. So you want to be efficient. So you see, right? If we just go straight through it. This kind of sucks. So what I'm gonna do is gonna show you how to do it. I'm gonna turn off my car here. I'm gonna drag in the first person character, a little bit easy to show. Come on, Jesus Christ. There you go. So, we need to actually manually add colliders to this. So I'm gonna go here on my game object, for example. This is the outer one, because there's actually the outer part here. Then add components, and then you can go to your physics tab here, and then you can add a box collider, like this. Now, in this case, you can see, right, it doesn't add it on everything, because we don't have an actual mesh selected. I'm gonna unfold this again. I didn't. Oh, oof. Oh wow, I should have. This is what happens when you don't delete history. Box collider, there we go. So it actually adds a collider on top of my entire mesh, and then I can play now and I can show you. You can no longer go through it. But it's also not accurate, right? You can see there's a little bit more of like distance in between. It's really annoying. So you can actually change it a little bit. So you can do it by either clicking on edit collider, then you can just move the individual parts, which is doable, or you can just input a value. Depends what you prefer, to be honest. Should be one here as well. There you go. Height is fine, and then we're gonna hit play again. And now it looks a little bit better. Of course, we don't actually get to walk on this, right? We can't walk on this because we have a little bit more detail with that. In this case, we can use this basic box collider here, but we need to adapt it a little bit so we can actually, like, for example, like this maybe. Yep. Then we need to add a secondary box collider. So again, add component, physics, box collider here, or just type it in manually, so it also works. Again, edit colliders. Move it forward all the way. Find a proper height, like that maybe. There you go. And there you go. So now we can actually jump here on the actual porch if I can click on it properly. There you go. Hop, see? There we go. Of course, we can still walk through these parts over here or on the stairs. But yeah, that's you can it's the same thing, right? But you have to add more detail. I'm not gonna do that though because I'm not that bored. But I can imagine that you want to do that at some point. So last step It's actually turning this into an actual game that you can play. So I'm gonna go to my file here, and then I'm gonna go to build settings. By default, right, it's added. This case scenes in build, but if it's not there, you can just add open scenes, and that's it. I'm gonna go for Windows. I'm gonna make for 64-bit, and I'm just gonna leave everything to default. I'm building for PC, Mac, Linux, and that's it. And then I'm gonna hit build. I'll pick a folder here. Let's do this, sure, and wait a couple of minutes. Shouldn't take too long, hopefully. Hopefully. So now building can take a long time. For example, the other project I'm working on is this one. Yeah, this one. When I build this, it takes around. Oh yeah, I can't do anything here, but the game that I showed previous times, it takes around 5 hours to build, I think. Ish. Not this scene though, the other scene. So it can take a while. So make sure that if you're on a deadline, that you don't wait till the last moment to actually build it, because it can take forever, and then you'll fail, and that will be sad. So don't do that. It's the same with light baking. That can take like days in the end. For example, the one I just baked this one, or I was baking this one. Small scene, right? Nothing really complicated about it. This is just for a menu that I'm making, like this. That took 4 hours to bake lighting in. I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, come on. I don't have that much patience, right? So, there are some settings to tweak that I will talk about in the future. For now, it's not that important though. But keep in mind that it can take a long ass time to do anything. Let's wait about this build. Shouldn't take too long, I think. Hopefully. So let's go back to this one. So I'm also working on a new series, a tutorial series about AI. I don't know if people are actually interested in it. I want to do an artificial intelligence in Unity video series about how to create like compelling hello actor like a compelling story about how to actually script AI that the enemy will attack you, chase you, die, that sort of stuff, and call a certain AI behavior. What's in the future though? Oh, I think it's almost done. It's almost done, but that's in the pipeline, the AI. Also lighting videos, because that's needed. Shader graph videos, so program shaders. Also something that's interesting as well. Let's see how this actually works. Takes a while. Oh, that's not that interesting. So compiling shaders, that takes forever. And let's actually see what it's actually doing, right? You can see here in the task manager what it's doing. It has, this is working right now, these shader compilers. So they're just compiling the actual shaders that you have in your scene, like the standard shader. That can take a long time. It's really annoying, but I think that this will be okay. I hope. So let's go back to this one. Oh. So this is actually made by a plugin called Pro Builder, which is by default in Unity. It's actually really fun. You can play with. So this, for example, right? I'll show this what this builds. This is also with camera effects, like the depth of field, for example. Actually, is really sexy. This is using the high definition rendering pipeline which you can actually tweak a lot. For example, here the depth of field without it and without it, it's a little bit, you know, it just adds a little bit more detail. You can actually add a lot. You can actually have bloom here. There's not much light in here, but it will show. Ambient occlusion, massive difference, massive difference. Color adjustment, subtle, but there. Vignetting, micro shadows, contact shadows, green sky. You can do so much nowadays with the high definition rendering pipeline. It's a whole different topic though. I will discuss it later. But it's definitely worth checking out if you're interested in like making things look pretty. Then the HDRP is the place to go. So this is pretty much how I did the previous video, right? With the racetrack, this is just how it's done, right? You just place something in Unity, place it properly. In this case, I don't have to add colliders here because it doesn't have a game, right? It's just a menu screen. But it's similar fashion. Then you just add a shit ton of plants in here. Okay, with this one. This looks complicated, but it's actually not. It's just, I'll show you. If I turn this off, it's just a plane, right? Just planes with alpha texture. Turn on again the alpha clipping, and then you get actual plants. Is this done? Oh, it's always done. It's done. Is it done? I think it's done. Okay. Oh, I get an error. Oh god, what do I do? What did I do now? Wow. I immediately get an error. Holy shit. Oh. Do I have to do this again? I know. I want you to make one. Let's use caps because that's true. Select and let's do it again. Yay. Should take not that much time. I hope. That's annoying. Oh, this is a lot faster. So if it fails, then it doesn't actually build at all. It's just like, yeah, I fucked up. I'm not gonna do anything. So it should say success in the end. Let's see if it actually does that now. I would appreciate it. Yep, there you go. So I actually opened the folder. So this is now actually as well in Unity, right? It actually succeeded. The reason it didn't work is I was actually building it in my working folder, and then doesn't do that. So you get like this folder structure, right? It's important that you actually zip all of this, otherwise it doesn't actually work. So for example, if I change the name of this to something else, like X-ray extract, now it doesn't work anymore. See, it can't find the actual folder. It's really common that people forget this and that they fail an assignment, for example, or they upload something and there's nothing to play. Now I can actually play it, so I'm gonna double click on my executable. And we should see our amazing game in action. There we go. We have gliders that you can walk. I can jump. We have a nice lush forest in the distance. And the fog just stops. The dust storm just stops. It's a nice forest, right? Let's go back up. So one of the nice things about Unity, in my opinion, right, is that you actually have to work hard to make it look good. By default, when you use engines like Unreal, it adds a lot of effects, like post effects, by default by itself, which, you know, when you first start working in Unreal, like, holy shit, this looks amazing, but it gets annoying and you kind of don't want that. So you actually want to have control of what you can add, like we just did in the other scene here, for example. I actually have control over what I can add to my post-processing and whatnot. So in this case, I can actually say, okay, I don't want to have like color adjustments at all or motion blur. I don't want that stuff, so I can actually do it manually, which is why I really like it over other engines. But that's my opinion in the end, right? That's pretty much it. I think I covered the entire first assignment. It's not that difficult. Next week, I think we're gonna do. I don't know yet. We'll see. Maybe lighting. And 2 weeks we're gonna do C# programming for artists. So it's not gonna be a hardcore C# like the engineers. Although I might, we don't know yet. But it's gonna be okay. Everything should be okay. Well, a couple more things. One more thing that's kind of cool to show us as well. Up top here, right, you have this shaded thing. You can actually change it to a wireframe. Then you can see the wireframe of your scene, which is really cool. And if you zoom out, you can actually see the terrain change. And the closer you get, it gets more and more detailed. The terrain itself. See, it gets more detailed, more detailed. And you can even get more detailed. This is really cool. This is called tessellation. So it actually looks at a camera distance and how much detail the object should have. You can also do a shaded wireframe. It has both. Again, if you zoom out, you can actually see the lot of detail. You look closely, right? And just adds more detail where needed. It's a really cool way. You can also see the shadow cascades if you know what it actually is. Render paths, the alpha channel, overdraw, mip maps, baked. You can see anything you want. It's really helpful also for debugging, different texel validity. That's actually really sexy. But for now, just look at the shaded mostly. That's only interesting for you guys at the moment. And again, just turn on the car for the assignment. Turn off the player. I'm gonna do it again, and then build it again, and then you have your amazing first game. And if you want, you can change some settings in the car if you want to. There's like stuff in here, like the car control script. You can actually change it. You can turn it into a front wheel drive, rear wheel drive. Holy shit! Let's do a steer helper 1. You can actually change anything you want, like steer angle, top speed. Let's do kph because we're not retarded. 300. Let's do. Ooh, let's go nuts here. Let's do 3,000, 30,000. Don't know what's gonna happen though. But it's probably gonna be ridiculous. Oh wow. And we're off. Oh, that didn't change much. Oof. Well, that sucked. That was a disappointment. Can we do more? That's no traction control. So just play with those settings and just have fun. Just mostly have fun because this is it's actually really fun to do. So next week I don't know what we're gonna do yet, but there will be a live stream. Just don't know what topic is yet. And have a nice weekend. Don't drink too much. And I'll see you again soon. Ciao.